Lena Brooks had learned early in life that mornings came colder when you had no one waiting for you. But nothing prepared her for the moment she dragged open a dented trash bin behind a bakery near the Brooklyn Bridge and found something that would change everything. A small blue bike, rusted, bent, missing a pedal, glimmered under the gray light, as if it had been waiting only for her. She pressed her hands against her mouth to stop the sound that wanted to burst out. It was hers. For the first time in 7 years of scraped nights and cardboard beds, she had found something whole. Then, only an hour later, she saw a man in Central Park who looked like he'd forgotten how to live. The bike wobbled and screeched as she pushed it up the slope toward the great lawn. The wheels rasped against the pavement so loudly a few joggers turned their heads with disapproval. Lena didn't care. Every turn of the wheel felt like a dream trying to come true. She imagined children glancing her way and thinking she belonged just another kid with a bike. Just a kid. But when she reached the center of the park, she froze. On a bench under an oak tree sat a man whose face looked like it had forgotten what sunlight meant. Impeccably dressed, tall, calm, yet broken around the eyes. Caleb Harrington, though she didn't know his name, looked like someone who didn't fit in a place as ordinary and warm as a park. He folded a newspaper, but didn't read it. He stared straight ahead, like life had stepped away from him and hadn't come back. Lena knew the type people who owned the world but didn't know what to do with it. She tried climbing onto the bike again, balancing on the seat, stretching her toes toward the pedals. The whole frame trembled. The bike lurched, tilted, and she landed on the ground with a hard slap. Pain shot through her elbow. She hissed and tried to shake it off. She looked around quickly, hoping no one had seen, but Caleb had. He stood up instinctively, one step forward, but stopped himself unsure. Lena brushed dirt from her dress and tried again. She gripped the handlebars, breathing carefully, pushing off with shaky determination. The bike wobbled even harder this time. She nearly toppled again. Caleb couldn't look away. When Lena finally caught him staring, she froze like a deer ready to bolt. The man raised both hands gently as if reassuring a wild creature. "You okay?" he asked. His voice wasn't sharp like other adults. It wasn't annoyed or tired. It sounded like someone who hadn't spoken to another human being all morning. Lena nodded, though her chin quivered. "I'm fine." But her eyes had a story he recognized. Hunger, fear, something missing. He tried again. "Do you need help?" She swallowed. "No. I mean yes. I mean..." Her words tangled. She hugged the handlebars tightly. "You don't look mean. That's why I'm talking to you." Caleb blinked. "That's good, I guess." Lena looked down at the bike. "Kids here have dads who hold the bike until they learn." She paused, fighting tears. "I don't have one, so I can't learn." Something inside him cracked open. "What about your mom?" he asked gently. "Don't know," she whispered. Caleb's throat tightened. Lena took a shaky step closer. Can I ask something weird? Really weird." She took a breath so deep her shoulders shook. "Please, don't say no right away." He crouched down so they were eye level. "Go ahead." She stared at the ground when she said it. "Could you, maybe, be my dad for a day, just one day, so I can learn how to ride?" Caleb's heart thudded once hard. Of all things, he expected this wasn't one of them. "Why me?" he asked softly. "Because..." Her voice cracked. "You looked the least angry at the world." He felt something warm and painful rise in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. He reached for the bike, lifting it carefully, checking the chain and bent pedal. She watched him as though he were handling a priceless treasure. "This bike," he said, "where'd you get it?" "In a trash bin behind the bakery. But it still works. I just need someone to help me not fall." Caleb stood in silence for a long moment. He looked at the tiny girl with scraped knees, tangled hair. and eyes that held more endurance than any child should ever need. Then he looked at the broken bike. A billionaire who could buy anything suddenly realized he wanted something money couldn't buy. "Okay," he said quietly. "For today, I'll be your dad." Lena's head shot up. Her eyes widened like sunlight had just found her face. "Really?" she whispered. "Really?" The word felt like a promise he didn't know he'd been waiting to make. She stepped closer, gripping his coat sleeve with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm gonna do it. I'm really gonna do it." Caleb placed one hand on the seat, one on the handlebars. "Ready?" Lena wiped her cheeks quickly. "I was born ready." He smiled unexpectedly fully for the first time in years. "Then let's start," he said. And as the two of them walked toward a flat stretch of pavement, the city buzzing around them, neither realized that this one day would change both of their lives forever. Caleb Harrington hadn't planned on staying in Central Park that morning. He certainly hadn't planned on holding up a rusted blue bike while a little girl he'd just met tried to keep her balance. Yet there he was, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, running beside Lena Brooks as she pedaled with all the determination of someone who wanted to taste life for the first time. "Keep your eyes forward," he called out. "Not on the ground, I'm trying." She squealed. The bike wobbled, dangerously clattered, then steadied as Caleb kept a firm grip on the seat. Her legs pumped unevenly. Her breath came in quick bursts, but her focus never wavered. For a child who had grown up learning to survive, learning to ride a bike was suddenly the biggest dream she had ever dared to chase. She made it 5 feet before the tire jerked, and she tipped over. Caleb caught her just in time, his hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. Lena brushed gravel from her palms. "I didn't fall all the way, so that's good." She glanced up at him, almost embarrassed. "Do you think I can actually learn today?" He knelt beside her. "I think you're tougher than half the people in this park, and I've already seen you get up twice without complaining." A small smile tugged at his mouth. "You'll learn." Something in her softened trust, maybe. "All right," she whispered. "Let's try again." They repeated the same dance, Lena pedaling with shaky confidence, Caleb running beside her, coaching her through every wobble. On the 6th attempt, the bike moved straighter. On the 7th, her feet found a better rhythm. By the 8th, Caleb realized he wasn't holding her up anymore. He let go without telling her. Lena rode forward, unsteady, uneven, but alone. After 10 long seconds, she realized it too. "I'm doing it," she shouted. "I'm actually doing it." She lasted another 2 seconds before the front wheel skidded and she tumbled onto the grass. Instead of crying, she rolled over and started laughing, a real bright sound that turned heads around them. Caleb reached her side, breathless but smiling. "You did it." "I did," she said, catching her breath. She sat up, her hair sticking to her forehead. "Did you see I was flying? You sure were." As he helped her stand, he felt a quiet pride bloom in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Not at board meetings, not at galas, not when closing deals. This was different. This mattered. Her stomach growled loudly, startling both of them. Lena's cheeks reddened. "Sorry, no apology needed," Caleb said. "Let's get you something to eat." He expected her to nod and follow him. Instead, she hesitated, clutching the bike's handlebars. "Am I allowed to?" she asked softly. "It's okay if not." He couldn't hide the ache her words created. "You're with me today. You don't need permission." They walked toward a small cafe near the park's edge. Lena stayed close, glancing at him every few steps, as though afraid he might disappear. Inside the cafe, people glanced at them, her oversized dress, her tangled hair, her scraped knees. But Caleb kept a steady hand at her back, guiding her to a table by the window. A waitress approached. "What can I get you folks?" Caleb started to speak, but Lena raised her hand timidly. "Do you have hot cocoa?" The waitress smiled. "Of course we do." "And maybe a muffin?" Lena asked, as if requesting something forbidden. "You can have both," Caleb said gently. When the mug of steaming cocoa arrived, Lena wrapped her hands around it like she was holding a piece of heaven. She took a slow sip, eyes fluttering closed for a moment. "I've always wondered what this tasted like." Caleb swallowed hard. "How is it warm?" she said. "Like, warm?" She didn't have another word for it. He ordered himself a coffee, watching her savor her drink. She ate the muffin slowly, deliberately, as if saving each bite for later in her memory. After a few minutes, she looked up. "Why were you alone in the park?" Caleb wasn't sure he remembered the last time anyone asked him something that wasn't about money or business. "I needed to think. About something sad." Her intuition was sharp. "Yes," he admitted. "My mom used to hum when she was sad," Lena said quietly. "But I don't remember her face, just the humming." He waited a beat. "Do you remember anything else?" She shook her head. "Sometimes I think faces leave when people do." Caleb felt the words hit him harder than expected. They left the cafe and Lena insisted on riding the bike again. This time she pushed off with urgency, the wheels turning smoother than before. Caleb jogged alongside her, offering small corrections. A security guard approached them halfway through the path. "Hey," he barked at Lena. "You can't ride that thing here." Lena froze, gripping the handlebars. Panic spread across her face, the kind that came from being chased off sidewalks and storefronts more times than she could count. Caleb stepped forward. "She's with me." The guard's tone shifted instantly. "Oh, my mistake, sir." Caleb's voice stayed firm. "It won't happen again." When the guard walked away, Lena exhaled shakily. I thought he was going to yell. "Not today," Caleb said. She nodded. "Today's different." They spent hours circling paths, laughing at near crashes, celebrating small victories. Lena asked endless questions about bikes, trees, dogs, skyscrapers. Caleb answered everyone, realizing how long it had been since anyone looked at him like he had answers worth hearing. As the sun dipped low, turning the park gold, they settled on a bench overlooking the reservoir. The breeze was gentle. The city hummed in the distance. Lena leaned against him, exhausted but content. This was the best day, she murmured. "If days came in jars, I'd keep this one forever." Caleb looked down at her. This small, resilient girl who had wandered into his morning like a whisper from another life. "I'm glad," he said quietly. She curled her fingers around his sleeve, holding on not for balance this time, but for something deeper. A sense of belonging. A sense of safety. Caleb didn't pull away. Something had shifted, subtle but undeniable. Whatever had brought her to him that morning was no coincidence. This day had rewritten something inside him, something he didn't yet have words for. Above them, the last light of day settled across the park, soft and warm, and neither of them wanted to go home. By the time the sky faded from gold to deep blue, Caleb knew he couldn't just send Lena off alone. She was fighting back yawns, her small body swaying from exhaustion, but she hid it well too well for a child her age. When he suggested walking her home, she startled like a cornered animal. "I can get there myself," she said quickly. "I'd feel better if I walked you," he replied. She held the handlebars of her bike with a white-knuckled grip, eyes darting toward the distant city lights. "It's okay. Really, I've been doing it forever." "Lena," he said gently, "I'm not asking to check up on you. I'm asking because I want you safe." Her shoulders tightened. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she exhaled and nodded, but the motion carried the weight of surrender, not agreement. They walked along the path that led out of Central Park, the evening cooler now. Lena pushed her bike beside her silent, except for the occasional sniffle she tried to hide. Caleb slowed his steps to match her smaller pace. "Is it far?" he asked. She shrugged. "Depends. Depends on whether I take the safer way or the faster way." The answer sent a chill through him. They crossed 59th Street and headed east. The city grew louder, cars honking, people rushing home, the evening crowds on the sidewalks. Lena moved like she'd memorized every crack in the pavement. She stayed close to the buildings, avoiding brightly lit storefronts and lingering too long near groups of adults. "You know this area well," Caleb said. "I know all the areas," she replied softly. Past Lexington Avenue, the shops grew older, the streets rougher. When they reached a narrow alley beside an old delivery entrance, she slowed. "This is it," she whispered. Caleb stared into the dim space. A metal door hung crooked on its hinges. Trash bins lined the wall, and tucked behind a stack of cardboard boxes beneath a rust-stained fire escape sat a makeshift shelter built from flattened packaging. A refrigerator box barely holding shape was wedged between two dumpsters. A blanket so thin it was almost transparent was draped inside. Plastic bags filled with scraps were piled neatly to one side, as if she were trying to impose order on something that would never be safe. "This is home?" Caleb asked quietly. Lena didn't look at him. She ran a hand over the torn cardboard. "It stays dry if the wind doesn't blow too hard." He stepped closer. The cold air seeped through the alley in sharp gusts. He imagined her lying there at night, the dark, pressing in the city noises. The cold, the fear. "Lena," he began. She shook her head quickly. "Don't say you're sorry. People always say sorry and walk away. I'm not walking away." Her eyes flicked up to him, then wide, uncertain. He crouched next to the little cardboard shelter. "How long have you been living here? I don't know." "A long time." She hugged her arms across her chest. "I find new spots when this one gets taken. Taken by who other people?" A tiny shiver ran through her. Some nice, some not. He tried to steady his breathing. Anger, sadness, disbelief, they all mixed inside him. "Do you have anyone?" "Any family? I had a mom once," she whispered. "Just pieces of her." Humming. "A soft sweater. I don't remember her face." He felt that sentence in his bones. A train rumbled beneath the ground, shaking the pavement slightly. Lena looked down the alley nervously. "We shouldn't stay here long. Sometimes people come through." "Then you shouldn't be here at all," Caleb said. "It's not safe." She looked at her feet. "It's the only place I know." He studied her thin arms, her bruised knees, the way she kept one hand on her bike like it was the only stable thing in her life. "Has anyone tried to help you?" he asked. "I ran away once," she said, "when the lady from the agency came." He turned toward her slowly. "Why did you run?" Her voice dropped. "The foster place she took the other kids to wasn't good. One girl came back to the alley once. She had a black eye, said the house yelled more than the streets." Caleb's jaw tightened. No one should have to choose between being alone and being scared. Lena wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "Sometimes alone is easier." He stood up and took a slow breath. "You can't stay here tonight." She tensed immediately. "Please don't tell anyone, please." Her voice trembled. "If they take me, I won't get to see you again." He knelt and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. She didn't pull away, but she didn't relax either. "I'm not calling anyone," he said, "but I'm not leaving you here." Her chin trembled. "Where would I go?" "With me." At that moment, the city quieted around them as if it held its breath. Lena shook her head. I can't. You're a grown-up with a real house. And I'm just—" She gestured weakly at the cardboard box. "This." "You're a child," Caleb said gently. A smart, brave, stubborn kid who deserves better than this alley. But people don't just take kids home, she whispered. They should, he said. And today I am. Her throat tightened. Will I get in trouble? No. Will you? Probably, he said honestly. But I can live with that. She stared at him for a long moment, her fingers squeezing the bike's handlebars. Then, in a voice so fragile it barely carried through the alley, she asked, You mean, just for tonight? For tonight, he said, and then we'll figure out tomorrow. Her eyes filled, but she blinked quickly, refusing to let the tears fall. Can I bring my bike, of course, and my blanket? Yes, and you won't leave if I fall asleep. He pressed a hand to his chest. I won't leave. Finally, she nodded, small, hesitant but real. Together, they gathered the few things she had: a blanket, a plastic bag with crumbs of bread, a broken pencil, and the bike she guarded like a treasure. She stood beside him, clutching her belongings, her breath visible in the cold air. As they stepped out of the alley and back into the city lights, Lena looked up at him. Caleb, she whispered. Yes. Thank you. For finding me. He didn't know how to answer. He only knew one thing. He hadn't found her. She had found him. Caleb had brought Lena into his penthouse the night before, with the intention of giving her one warm meal, one safe night, and one uninterrupted sleep. But when he woke the next morning and stepped into the living room to find her curled on the couch with her small hands clutching her blanket and her bike leaning safely against the wall, something shifted inside him. Her presence, so fragile and quiet, filled the space in a way the art on his walls, the polished floors, the expensive furniture never had. He made breakfast, scrambled eggs toast, and a little bowl of strawberries. And when the smell drifted through the apartment, Lena appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. You're still here, she whispered. Of course I'm here. She walked slowly toward the table as though afraid approaching too quickly would make everything disappear. She sat down quietly, waiting rather than reaching for anything. You can eat, he said gently. Her eyes softened. I didn't know if I was supposed to. Lena, he said, sitting across from her, you don't have to ask permission to be cared for. She looked at the food, then at him. I'm still learning that. They ate together in a silence that felt peaceful, not heavy. But peace didn't last long. His phone buzzed. It was his sister Emily. She rarely called before noon. The moment he answered, her voice burst out sharp and anxious. Caleb, what on earth am I seeing online? He glanced at his tablet. A notification banner flashed across the screen. Tech CEO Caleb Harrington spotted with homeless child in Central Park. Paparazzi had caught a photo of him steadying Lena's bike, her small frame next to his suit and tie. The caption suggested scandal charity stunt or something worse. Caleb's jaw tightened. It's not what they're implying. Then, what is it? Emily demanded. You bring a child into your home without telling anyone she was living in a cardboard box, he said. What did you want me to do? Leave her there? No, Emily said softly. Of course not, but this... Caleb, this could get complicated. He hung up before frustration turned to anger. Lena watched him carefully. Did I do something wrong? No, he said firmly. You didn't do anything wrong. But the world outside didn't care about innocence. By mid-morning, his attorney, Martin Hale, arrived. He took one look at Lena, then at Caleb. This is going to be a process, Martin said. Child Protective Services is already aware. Media attention accelerates everything. I don't care, Caleb replied. I'm not letting her go back to the streets. Martin sighed. Then we have to prepare. For the next hour, Lena sat quietly on the couch, clutching her notebook, listening as adults discussed her future like a puzzle piece. Background checks, Martin said. A home evaluation. psychological assessments. She's 7, Caleb snapped. She doesn't need assessments. She needs safety. That may be true, Martin said calmly, but the system doesn't bend for urgency or emotion. When the attorney left, Caleb leaned against the counter, rubbing his forehead. Lena approached him cautiously. If this is too big, I can go back. He knelt in front of her at eye level. You are not going back. I don't care how big this gets. She swallowed hard, a small tremor moving through her. People always change their minds. I don't want you to change yours. He reached for her hand. I won't. That afternoon, a social worker named Mara Boyd arrived unexpectedly. Lena tensed, gripping Caleb's sleeve with both hands. It's okay, Caleb whispered. I'm right here. Mara smiled kindly. I'm not here to take you away, sweetheart. I'm just here to make sure you're safe. Lena didn't let go of Caleb not once, while Mara questioned him about where he found her, what he intended, and what his living arrangements were. And your motivation, she asked, finally. Why are you doing this? Caleb looked at Lena before answering, because a child shouldn't sleep on concrete, and because she asked me for one day of being her dad. I'm choosing to give her more than that. Mara wrote something down. You understand, this won't be simple. A billionaire taking in a homeless child will draw attention. Investigations. Scrutiny. I understand. Do you understand, Lena? Mara asked gently. Lena nodded, but her fingers dug into Caleb's sleeve. Just don't move me somewhere without him. Mara's expression softened. That's not my goal. My goal is to keep you safe. Both of you need to show the court this is what you want. We will, Caleb said. When Mara left, Lena exhaled shakily. I thought she'd take me. I told you, he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. That evening, they sat on the couch with the city lights glowing through the tall windows. Lena drew quietly in her notebook. When Caleb glanced over, he saw what she'd sketched, a small girl with a bike standing beside a tall man, holding her hand. That's us, she said without looking up. He swallowed thickly. It is. She set down the pencil. I don't know what comes next. I don't either, he admitted. But we'll face it together. Lena leaned her head against his arm. I never had someone to face things with. You do now. He didn't say the word out loud, not yet, but he felt it growing in his chest, steady and certain. Father, not for a day, not by accident, not out of guilt, but because she belonged somewhere and maybe that place was right here with him. And as he watched her drift to sleep beside her drawing, Caleb realized something had changed far deeper than he expected. He didn't just want to protect her. He wanted to fight for her safety, for her future, for her home, for her place in the world. For the first time in his life, Caleb Harrington knew exactly what he was meant to do. He wasn't saving Lena. She was saving him too. Caleb never imagined that the life he'd built carefully, quietly behind glass walls and polished floors would one day revolve around a 7-year-old girl with tangled hair and a rusted blue bike. But as the weeks unfolded, the apartment that once echoed with silence now carried the sound of pencils scratching across a paper, small feet pattering down the hallway, and a voice that always asked, "Are you still here?" before she dared to fall asleep. The adoption process moved slower than either of them wanted. There were appointments, interviews, background checks, home visits. Every form asked him to explain why he believed he could care for her. Every meeting asked her if she truly wanted to stay. Each time her small hand wrapped around his arm was her answer, but the hardest part came unexpectedly. One morning, Mara Boyd, the social worker, who had grown more like an ally than an official, asked Caleb to sit down. "We need to discuss her biological mother," she said gently. Lena froze on the couch, her colored pencils dropping from her hand. Caleb leaned forward. "Is she alive?" "Yes," Mara said quietly. "But she's been in a long-term mental health facility in Queens. She isn't stable enough to care for herself, let alone a child. She relinquished parental rights years ago, but the court needs her medical records for the file." "It's a formality." She looked at Lena with soft eyes. "She never abandoned you, sweetheart. She was too sick to raise you." Lena stared down at her shoes. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Did she ever ask about me?" Mara hesitated. "She kept your name on a bracelet. That's all I know." Lena nodded slowly, not crying, not smiling, just absorbing it piece by difficult piece. Caleb sat beside her and placed an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him without a word, her small body trembling once. In the days that followed, he introduced her to gentle routines: morning breakfast, short walks, time to rest. He took her to the pediatrician, the dentist, the optometrist. Each place brought new fears. She tried hard to hide, squeezing his hand until her knuckles went white. But each time his calm presence steadied her. Her eyes shined brightest on the morning he said, "How about we look at a school today?" She blinked. A real school, like with desks and books. Exactly like that. He took her to a small private elementary on the Upper East Side. The headmistress knelt to greet her, spoke to her kindly, and showed her art rooms, a playground, a library filled with color. Lena touched the spines of books gently, as though afraid they might crumble under her fingers. "Do kids get to take these home?" she whispered. Sometimes, the headmistress replied, especially if their parents read with them. Lena looked up at Caleb. "Can we read books too?" He felt something tighten in his chest. "Yes," he said, "every night if you want." That night she fell asleep with a picture book tucked under her chin. The media storm slowly faded, replaced by a more complicated waiting game: evaluations, signatures, court dates. But despite the process, life settled into something steady, something real. They baked cookies one Saturday. The kitchen became a mess of flour, laughter, and a little smoke, but Lena declared the burnt cookies perfect. They visited the Metropolitan Museum, where she stood awestruck beneath paintings and sculptures. "I feel like people in these pictures are alive," she said. Just quiet. They went back to Central Park on weekends. Caleb adjusted the seat on her bike, tightened bolts, and finally replaced the missing pedal. She rode faster now, hair-flying cheeks pink with joy. One afternoon, an elderly woman walking her dog smiled at them. "Your daughter's got spirit," she said. Caleb didn't correct her. "She does," he replied. As the next court date approached, the nights grew harder for Lena. She had nightmares again, quiet ones this time. She'd sit up panting, eyes wide, whispering, "They're going to move me." Caleb would sit beside her, brushing her hair back. "No one is moving you," he told her each night. "You stay right here." "But what if the judge says no? Then I appeal, then I fight, then I knock on every door until they let me bring you home again." Her small face softened. "You'd come get me. I'd cross every bridge in the city," he said. "I wouldn't stop." On the morning of the final hearing, she refused to let go of his hand, not when they entered the courthouse, not when they waited outside the courtroom, not even when Mara came to greet her. "You ready, sweetheart?" Mara asked. Lena shook her head. "Only if he comes." "I'm right here," Caleb assured her. During the hearing, the judge reviewed the file, asked questions, and observed them carefully. Lena sat straight-backed, feet dangling, gripping Caleb's sleeve, just like she had the first day they met. After a long silence, the judge spoke. Based on the evidence, testimony, and the child's clearly expressed wishes, the court approves the adoption. The judge signed the papers. "Congratulations, Mr. Harrington. Miss Brooks, welcome home." Lena didn't breathe for a full second. Then she burst into tears, not the quiet tears of fear, but the overwhelming tears of relief. She threw her arms around Caleb's neck. "I'm yours," she choked out. "You're mine," he whispered, holding her tightly, "forever." The judge handed her the official certificate, and Mara hugged her before leaving with a warm smile. When they stepped outside the courthouse, the city noise felt softer, brighter somehow. That afternoon, Caleb took her to Central Park with her newly repaired bike. The golden light of late afternoon spilled across the path. Ready to show off, he asked. She grinned, climbed onto the bike, and pushed off with confidence. She pedaled fast, steady-free, her laughter ringing across the park. "Dad, look!" she yelled. Caleb jogged beside her, smiling like a man who had finally found the missing part of his life. "I see you, Lena," he called back. "I see you." She looped around and rode straight toward him, brake squealing as she stopped. "Can we go home now?" she asked. He squeezed her shoulder. "Yeah," he said softly. "Let's go home." Together, they walked toward the skyline, the little blue bike rolling beside them, once found in a trash bin, now the first piece of a brand new life. She had come into his world by accident. He'd stepped into hers by choice. And together they built a family. In the end, the story of Lena Brooks and Caleb Harrington became far more than a tale about a broken bicycle and a chance encounter in Central Park. It was a story about two lives, one small and fragile, the other powerful yet hollow, colliding at the exact moment they needed each other most. A little girl who had learned to survive alone in the cold corners of New York City found the courage to ask a stranger for something children should never have to beg for a single day of belonging. And a man who had spent years building an empire discovered that all the success in the world meant nothing without someone to share it with. Their journey began with uncertainty and fear, but it unfolded into trust, healing, and the slow, steady building of a bond neither expected. Lena found more than food, shelter, or warmth. She found a safe place to land, a place where childhood could begin again. Caleb found purpose in protecting her, guiding her, and fighting for her future with a determination he didn't know he possessed. The empty spaces in his home and in his heart filled with drawings, laughter, small footsteps, and the quiet gratitude of a child who finally understood she wasn't alone anymore. Every obstacle they faced only strengthened their connection. Social workers, legal hearings, public scrutiny, none of it could shake the truth they both felt. Lena didn't just need a father. Caleb needed a daughter. Their lives had been missing each other. And when the final ruling came, when Lena was officially declared Lena Harrington, something settled inside them both. Not just relief, something deeper, like the world finally aligning into place. Their story reminds us that family isn't defined by blood or circumstance. It's built through love, commitment, and the courage to show up for someone even when the path is uncertain. It shows that compassion can break through the hardest walls, and that one act of kindness can create a chain reaction powerful enough to rewrite a life. For Lena, finding a discarded bicycle in a trash bin led her to a home, a father, and a future she never believed she deserved. For Caleb, a simple request from a child. Be my dad for a day opened a door to a new life filled with meaning, connection, and hope. The deeper lesson in their story is simple yet profound. Sometimes the greatest impact we make in the world is through the people we choose to care for. You never know whose life you might change or who might end up changing yours. In a time when so many feel isolated or unseen, their story encourages us to look up, reach out, and listen. To recognize that small moments, a conversation, a helping hand, a decision to show kindness can alter the course of someone's future. For anyone watching or listening today, consider the opportunities around you to be a source of comfort, guidance, or support. Maybe it's checking in on someone who seems alone. Maybe it's offering help to someone struggling quietly. Maybe it's choosing patience, choosing generosity, or choosing to step into someone's story when it would be easier to walk away. Acts of compassion don't need to be grand gestures. Sometimes the smallest kindness becomes the turning point in another person's life. If this story touched you, inspired you, or reminded you of the power each of us carries to make a difference, then I invite you to become part of our growing community. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful stories with heart, purpose, and impact. So please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who might need a message of hope today. Your encouragement is what keeps this channel alive and motivated to bring you the next powerful story. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to click subscribe to join us for more inspiring content ahead.